Welcome to R2-3D, my name is Alan, and in this week's video I'll be tackling one of the simplest and yet most difficult prints I've ever had to paint, because apparently I like stress too much. This project seemed to have it in for me right from the very start, from failed bill prints to corrupted video files. But I pushed through it either because I'm an idiot or I'm an idiot who refuses to quit. So if you enjoy your 3D printing and painting, or like to watch someone regret their life choices in high definition, grab a snack, grab a chair, this could be the one for you. This awesome model of Spider-Gwen is from Abe3D. They make amazing sculpts, so check out their Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description below. And I'd just like to thank the folks at Funky Crow for kindly supplying this resin for this project. Thanks guys! I started by printing this model with as few supports on the visible areas as possible. Less cleanup, less damage, and way fewer headaches on the final piece. I used some UV putty from Funky Crow to fill in those gaps, and after a lot of scraping and smoothing with a silicone spatula, I UV cured it with a UV pen. I then moved on to wet sanding with a super fine grit paper, and here's where it gets interesting. All my video files for that process, corrupted. All of them. Gone. Just like that. So, as you can see here, after I finished swearing, I hit the model with Vallejo black and sealed it with a satin varnish. The camera made it look cloudy, but trust me, it dried crystal clear and gave the finish some solid protection. So after that I painted her shoes with a base white and then allowed that to dry and overpainted it with an AK turquoise blue. And then moved on to paint her hoodie top with Vallejo cold white. And then came the next big headache. The liquid masking for the white panels. I wrapped off the rest of the model with plastic kitchen film to make sure it was all covered. Normally it's a smooth sailing, but this time, nope. When I peeled off the mask, the white overspray flakes clung to the black paint like it had paid rent. Absolute nightmare. So then I spent way too long picking off the stubborn white spots one by one, and then had to repaint the affected areas like nothing had ever happened. Which kind of sucked, as that was the whole point of using the liquid mask in the first place, was to avoid that. I wanted the base webs to sparkle, so I hit them with a Mr. Colour clear silver over white for an instant glitter effect, which is a nice little kick. For her hoodie web pattern, which was a turquoise inner, I then tried various colour combinations until I got the right one. First I tried Vallejo Bloody Red, that was too red. Then I tried Squid Pink, too pink. And in the end, the Goldilocks mix was Squid Pink plus Warlord Purple, and that was just right. The next part for her was, for a change, a nightmare. The inner arms and upper sections of her arms were hard to reach, and I had to practically evolve new finger joints just to get in there. I ended up carefully brushing in the pink-purple combo from before, and then going over the webs with turquoise like a contortionist. Now if all that seems a bit negative, I think it was just the fact that the arms didn't separate from the torso, which made it a bit harder to paint. That was all. Next, I took a break from the tiny details and moved on to the base wall. The brickwork got a coat of Vallejo Hull Red and then a dry brush of Monster Brown, which also reminded me I desperately needed a better dry brush. The goal was to keep the brickwork from looking like one flat wall of brown, so I sprayed Cygor brown contrast into the top shadows and randomly shaded bricks to make it feel like more natural and organic. I broke up the wall even more with patches of Beastie Brown for extra interest, and then masked off the top and sprayed it with Army Painter's Dungeon Grey for a nice contrast. I dry brushed Army Painter's Ash Grey over the top to pick out the edges and highlights, and then deepen the shadows with a coat of Citadel's Nuln Oil before going over the uncovered parts of the wall to add shadow in there. I then gave the brickwork another dry brush with a greyish brown from Vallejo and wrapped the wall with a streaky layer of Citadel's Fire Slayer Flesh contrast paint to give the bricks some extra detail and life. For the head sculpts, I started with Vallejo black primer and a white zenithal highlight, and then hit the blonde hair with a first pass of Citadel's Skeleton Horde to nail down the darker shadow areas. I brought the blonde hair to life with dry brush highlights using a mix of Vallejo's yellow RLM 04 and Army Painter Brain Matter Beige. And for the brightest highlights I used a lighter pass of pure Brain Matter Beige and then deepened some of the shadows with a fine brush touch of Skeleton Horde. I used a base coat on the headphone band of pure white. This would make the pink that would go on top pop. And then I painted a layer of a mix of squid pink and water purple. For the mask version of the head, I covered the eye lenses with a liquid mask to help keep them white, as I planned to have a soft pink-purple outline around them. I used a silicone brush for this, as a normal bristle hairbrush would get ruined by the liquid mask. Fine line airbrushing is not my superpower, especially with my depth perception problems, so outlining the eyes was always going to be a bit tricky for me. After a couple of white and purple oversprays, I finally got it right and then cleaned it up with a thin brush to add an outline of pink-purple. Next, I completely forgot to add the dark undertones before the flesh tones, because of course I did. Realising my mistake, I went back in with Vallejo Warlord Purple and then Transparent Red to lay down the undertones. With the undertones done, I sprayed Vallejo Basic Skin Tone, keeping it thin so the colours underneath still showed through. I then highlighted the skin with a thin pass of Vallejo's Prue Pink from above to mimic the light source, and then added shadow from underneath with Brown Rose to tone down the pink value of it and bring balance to the skin tone. I then finished off our skin tone with a thinned down flat flesh from Vallejo to add some yellow back into the shade and lessen the pink. Next, I broke out my trusty nail brush to paint the black around the eyes and the eyelashes with way more control than I could with the regular brush. I then gave her lips a soft touch of squid pink for that light makeup look. Since fine detailing with the airbrush isn't my strong suit, I used a dry, thin brush of Brown Rose for the eyeshadow, just enough to accentuate the eyes without risking an overlap. With the detail brush, I carefully painted in the eyebrows using a fine strokes of Citadel's Fire Slayer Flesh, a nice mid-brown tone. For the whites of the eyes, I used Army Painter's Brain Matter Beige, a nice creamy off-white that looks natural when it's painted. I then painted the iris with Vallejo dark blue and added highlights with deep sky blue. With a little dab of black for the pupil and a tiny white dot for the specular highlight. To finish, I gave the eyes and lips a coat of gloss varnish, and with that, she's done. I really went through a roller coaster with this project, but finishing it was absolutely worth it. She's a beautiful sculpt and I'm so glad I stuck with it. So if you mess up along the way, don't get discouraged, it can still turn out amazing in the end. Thanks for watching and for all your comments and subscriptions. I truly appreciate every single one. So until next time, this has been R2-3D and I'll see you in the next one.